Peace, love, knowledge, and freedom. And welcome to another exciting episode of Frail Conversations. And today, as you've seen from the title, we're going to be talking about intellectual, um, intellectual definition. The reason why I want to talk about this episode is because I was watching, I want to say it was The Breakfast Club. And there was a situation where, what's her motherfucking name? Jess Hilarious. She was talking about how she was talking about, well, it wasn't her, but there was a guest up there. I don't know the lady name, but she had on a blue shirt and shit. But in the episode, they were talking about women or whatever, and Jess was like, "Yeah, let it be known that only a woman can have a baby or some shit like that." So the lady interjected, "A woman is a social construct, whatever." And I was like, "No, it's not." But whatever. I get why they say that. I get what they say it for and who they say it for in the regards of when they say it. But it kind of really got me wondering, because it's like these are the things that happens when masculinity is gone. You feel what I'm saying? We hear shit and then we make an emotional description, but we don't make an intellectual definition. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I'm using this is because when we think about the mind, and this goes into, coming off the law of relativity as well. When it comes to the mind is split between emotion and intellect. And that's what I'm going to start saying. I usually say emotion and thoughts, but thought is its own element. But now I decided to just, when we look at how the mind is divided, you have emotions and you have intellect. From the emotions, of course, you get your feelings. From the intellect, you get your ideas or whatever. But from the perspective of what in which they were talking, they were saying that women is a social construct. A woman is a social construct based off of, I guess, patriarchy, or based off whatever it was. So it got me, it's crazy because this was a dream. It was not a dream, but it was something that was happening in my sleep when this idea came to me. But as I'm thinking about what she was saying, she was like, women are a social construct. That's what the woman was saying. It's like weird. She's like, female is biological. That's something you can't change. But a woman is a social construct. And I'm like, so if a woman is a social construct, then we're saying that a woman, the idea of what we have as a woman isn't real. It's based off the idea. It's the intellectual definition. So it's based off the idea. And then it got me questioning. Then if a woman is a social construct, then that means every letter of the LGBTQ plus community is a social construct, right? Like, I don't get it, because what we say a woman is, what makes it a social construct is the fact that we quote unquote relegate women to duties. A woman is supposed to do this, a woman is supposed to do that, a woman is supposed to do that. So if we're relegating it to duties, then we're saying that a woman is defined by action, right? And it's this action and the duties that make it a social construct. Nobody is L until they do some gay shit. Nobody is L until they do some lesbian shit. Nobody is G until they do some gay shit. Nobody's Q until they do some queer shit. Nobody is whatever until they do the whatever shit. So it's like, how are those not social constructs, but a woman is? I don't get it. How can you be born any of those letters, but you're not born a woman? Because it's like, well, a woman is a social construct based off the duties that she doesn't have to do. So that means all of these things are duties and actions that have to be done in order to make that a thing. You feel what I'm saying? But as I peel back the layers, just from that individual thing, it got me thinking on a broader scale. When we understand masculinity being the spiritual, mental, and physical embodiment of the essence of analysis and deconstruction, and we understand femininity as spiritual, mental, and physical embodiment of the essence of synthesis and construction, we get to the mindset of, this is what I always say, when women feel before they think, men think before they feel. But it's even deeper than that. It's just a part of the mind that we use. Women use their emotional side first, the emotional mind first. Men use their intellectual side first, intellectual mind first. Which is why when you're using your emotional mind first, you're always going to describe shit. you're always going to have a description. But when you use your intellectual side, you're always going to have a definition. This goes into the finite, the infinite, the squares and circles, all of this other, esoteric spiritual shit that goes into it, but on a planar level. This is what makes shit so relative. And the fact that masculinity is gone, and this is why I say with masculinity being gone, what we have adopted is toxic femininity. You feel what I'm saying? Because now we tie to emotional descriptions of shit. We codify reality. We codify reality by emotional descriptions. But we do it in a negative way, or in a harmful way, and sometimes, or in an illusory way. But it's fact. It's perceived as fact because of the way in which we approach it through emotional description. Nothing that we say is intellectually sound. It's all emotion. It's how something made us feel, not what something made us think. It's always how something made us feel, and we put the description on that, and we act like that's a definition. This is why shit is so subject to change. But when we consider how patriarchy set up under toxic femininity, this makes sense. But then when you know that masculinity is gone, that means that there's no intellectual definition, because we don't get to the point of piggybacking off the law of relativity. It is what it is. You feel what I'm saying? And as I'm listening to these two women go back and forth, and I'm looking at the comments of the shit, everybody like, yo, Jess is stupid, Jess is this. They trying to go in on Jess, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. But because there's no masculinity in here for the analysis and deconstruction to objectively view something, in order to see something through the intellectual definition, we put everything on an emotional description. And by putting everything on an emotional description, we get the world that we're kind of living in right now that is completely fucking up. So I'm thinking about how we can say a woman is a social construct, but yet this other shit isn't social construct. Like, motherfuckers are really saying I was born this way. But no, that's a social construct too. How are these social constructs concrete and the other social constructs not? Because it's what I feel on the inside. I feel like this. Why do you feel like that? And that's what we'll be diving into today. Not just that shit, but we're peeling back the layers of emotional descriptions versus intellectual definitions, and why the need for intellectual definition is needed, and why masculinity is important tied to that. So all of this shit that they talk about masculinity being toxic, it's not. This is toxic femininity, because we're building worlds off of emotional description and not intellectual definition. But before I dive heavy into that, be sure to follow me on Instagram sorry, y'all, it's so wired. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Seen It All. Be sure to check out my website at IamJustSeen.com to get all things that are just seen. To all those who tip, donate, and sponsor to the podcast, you are greatly appreciated. To all those who would like to tip, donate, and sponsor to the podcast, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the podcast. Not the episode, but the podcast itself. And as always, Cash App and PayPal are just fine. And you know the vibes. That's that for this, and that's this for that. So when we come back, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into so frail conversations, intellectual definitions. And don't forget to visit IamJustSeen.com. There, you can get all things Just Seen. You want to add the So Frail series to your library? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You want to learn how to master the markets for serious trading and investing? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You want to get your hands on some exclusive merch like tees, hoodies, coffee mugs, hats, bags? Visit IamJustSeen.com. Are you thinking about transitioning into the plant-based lifestyle? Visit IamJustSeen.com. You ever want to just chat with Seen about anything from simple advice to mentorship? Visit IamJustSeen.com. Anything and everything that is me, you can find at IamJustSeen.com. So take a quick peek into my world to see why being just seen is nothing less but always more. Because you never really know what you need until you see it, and you will never see it unless you visit IamJustSeen.com. All right. Welcome back. And without further ado, let's dive heavy into this motherfucker. So, continuing on. We are in a society that is kind of paradoxical, because they're like, yo, this is a patriarchal society. Men run and men are doing this. It's not. Men may be doing the shit, but it's not masculinity that's doing the shit. Masculinity, by and large, is intellectual definition. We don't have any concrete intellectual definitions that we building on shit. Everything is off of an emotional description. So much so that motherfuckers run with shit that they have not defined in any way, shape, or form, and don't know the they haven't analyzed and deconstructed the full scope of anything, and they express it as if it's fact. And it's not, it's opinion. Most of what we live in this world is based off someone's opinions, not anybody's facts. Facts are tied to masculinity, opinion is tied to femininity, and it's not what you think or what you know, but what you feel. Like anything, like that means anything can be right at any given time, depending on how you feel. And that's what they want us to believe this world is supposed to be, based off how we feel. And you're supposed to tie the two together, what you feel versus what you idealize. And I'm gonna use idealize because of the fact that I use feelings and ideas. But when you are so wired and wound to what I feel versus what do you idealize, not idolize, idealize, you'll miss the duality in which these two things are supposed to be experienced. Case in point, the word narcissist, right? Everybody's being niggas is just diagnosing niggas as narcissist as a motherfucker, like not realizing that we're all narcissistic people. We're all narcissistic people simply because we're programmed and wired into a education system, into a system that is supposed to make narcissists because it creates status. Like your indoctrination and your education is designed to give you a specific status, and that status is what determines your narcissism. Some people believe that they are something before they're that, and that's what, oh, you're not a narcissist then. You're not a narcissist once you achieve the shit that you're supposed to achieve. But motherfuckers go through all of this perfectionism and promote this perfectionism and then get mad when somebody becomes a narcissist. Like, nigga, that's what's supposed to happen. That's what's supposed to happen. You can't in one breath say, I want it. You can't in one breath tell a motherfucker that nobody's perfect and then make them be perfect. Everybody's goal when you start off in the education system is to be an A student. Like, everybody aspires to be an A student. You tell your kids, become an A student, be narcissist. Like, I don't become an A student to not act like a motherfucking A student. That's crazy, right? But that's because we have created emotional descriptions, and emotional descriptions end up changing. There's not a concrete thing. So when we look at the narcissist, we're like, this person is a narcissist because of X, Y, and Z. No, this person is a narcissist because they're successful, because they've done the work to be perfect. And we mad at that? No, because we're mad at that because it shines light to our imperfections. It makes us feel a certain way. Because we didn't put in that work. So now I'd rather project and call you a narcissist erroneously and use the whole term wrong. And then I can justify why I feel you're a narcissist to me. Because this is what your reality makes me feel. I can give the emotional description however I want to. This is where that whole your feelings are valid thing is becoming a toxic thing, because your feelings ain't valid. Your feelings are not valid if you are unable to idealize the feeling and fully have an intellectual ideation of the feeling. If you just have an emotional description of it, but you don't have an intellectual definition, it's not going to work, because your definition will be whatever it wants to be. This is why when I started off my perspectives of masculinity, when I started speaking on that for my platform, this is why I defined it first. This is why I made sure y'all know what definition I'm using whenever I'm talking about something. Because I don't want to leave no room for subjectivity to say, okay, we got to agree to disagree or this, that. No. This is what I'm talking about. I don't give a fuck what is making you feel. I don't give a fuck what you're trying to transition and bring back into this conversation. This is what the fuck I'm talking about. It has been intellectually defined for the conversation to go forward. So fuck your feelings right now. Your feelings are completely irrelevant. As valid as you want them to be, they're irrelevant when the definition is not. Your feelings are not valid when they go against the definition that's already been presented. This is why masculinity is so important. But your feelings are no longer valid when they go against the definition that has been presented. I said that to go back into narcissism, because everybody's saying I'm a narcissist is a person who feels too high of themselves or whatever the case may be, and then they do whatever they do. But how did the term narcissist develop? You got to go back to that, and you got to study the story of Narcissus. The Greek motherfucker from the Greek mythology. Narcissist was a motherfucker who everybody said was beautiful. Everybody said this motherfucker was beautiful. The hoes, the niggas, everybody that was around him. They said this the most beautiful motherfucker ever. He knew he was the most beautiful motherfucker ever, so much so that he ended up dying out of the vanity because he could not stop looking at his reflection in the ocean, in the lake. Ultimately, it led to his demise. It's no different than the Midas touch, but we're sticking with narcissist because it's like, okay, we're going to call this person narcissistic because of that, right? But we're not looking at the intellectual definition of it to make it concrete. Anytime this is what it boils down to, anytime you lust over yourself, you're a narcissist. Like, that's really what Narcissist's story was about. Narcissus, whatever his name is. But that's what his story was about. It wasn't about arrogance. It wasn't about it was about lust. It was about lusting over self. This is what we call self-love these days. When you automatically have a fucked up perception of love, because there's no intellectual definition, only a feeling, only the emotional description of love. Ask anybody what love is. They don't have a definition for you. Hence why one of the reasons why I say when I'm referring to love, I'm saying the power for betterment through correction. I don't want any ambiguity about what the fuck I'm talking about when I'm talking about what the fuck I'm talking about. So when I'm talking about love, self-love, that means internalizing and reflecting the betterment through correction to yourself. But because we view love as the amalgamation of infatuation, admiration, desire, and lust, that's how we define love. What do you think self-love is going to be? This is why motherfuckers say embrace me flaws and all and don't fix the flaws. The fuck? That's stupid as fuck. That's dumb as fuck. What you mean embrace you flaws and all? No, why do you feel like what you have is a flaw? And this is why people say this is the way I am and I'm not changing it. That's self-lust. That's not love. That's lust. You dig what I'm saying? But because there's no intellectual definition for how we perceive love, it's up in the air for emotional description. It's what I feel this should be. There needs to be a balance between what you feel and what you idealize. There needs to be that soul balance to say, these are ideas that go with these particular feelings, and now we're going to meet in the middle. Relativity. Relativity is absolved at that point. You feel what I'm saying? The reason why the law of relativity works so well is because of these 2 points of the mind. The emotional side versus the intellectual side. Because you have to have the same level of intellectual intelligence and emotional intelligence as the person you're communicating with. Nobody has that. Intellectually, motherfuckers don't read beyond a 6th grade level. I know y'all probably getting tired of me saying that shit, but I got to bring it in because this all is all relevant and it all plays out into this. Motherfuckers do not read beyond a 6th grade level. So that means they don't comprehend beyond that of a 12-year-old. Which means emotionally, they probably haven't developed that way either. Because you have to have that intellectual definition and defining of things in order to be emotionally sound with it. Otherwise, you're going to be emotionally retarded. It's a lot of emotionally retarded motherfuckers out here. And they think because, I'm always expressing my emotions. Or I'm like, no, that has nothing to do with your emotional intelligence. Do you understand the feelings? Do you understand the basis of why these? Do you even have the idea for what the feeling is? No, you just have the description. You know why? Because motherfuckers don't ask why no more. And I know, saying, is this really going to be a soul-for-real conversation? I hope so. But it's definitely going to be a soul-for-real conversation because I got to relate it to us as men. When masculinity is gone, there is no intellectual definition of shit. Everything is an emotional description. And because everything is an emotional description, even from us as men, when we're describing something, we're describing it from an emotionally descriptive perspective. What's a bad bitch? There's not a uniform definition of what a bad bitch is. It's what you perceive to have as a bad bitch. She got to look a certain way. But what about the core? What about her mind? What about her spirit? What's the spirit of a bad bitch? What's the mind of a bad bitch? Fuck just the physical of a bad bitch. That's why you need the full definition to where whatever I identify this is, it doesn't change. It doesn't change, and it won't change. But what we do, we emotionally describe shit because this is how we want things to feel. So this is why it's like when people say, why are men emotionally unavailable? Men ain't emotionally unavailable. We're not emotionally unavailable. We just don't, we're emotional, period. Because this is the way society wanted it to be. This is the way society is. Society is built on emotional descriptions. Hence the term politically correct. That's based off your politics affect your emotions, my nigga. When they come in for your vote, when they want you to vote for them, when they come into politics and they're coming in your communities to get your vote and shit, what are they doing? They catering to your emotions. The Democrats have shown you exactly how easy it is to cater to your emotions. As black people, we look at our emotions get catered to so much that we don't even know we're being manipulated. Because this motherfucker can dance, we feel good, invite him to the cookout. And now we poison. You dig what I'm saying? We fuck up on a multitude of levels because we build shit off of emotional descriptions. So now, when you realize, why do they take the man out of the home? It's not just taking the man out of the home. It's taking masculinity out of the man, then taking him out of the home. If you take the masculinity out of a man, you lose the intellectual definition of shit. Which is how all of this other shit can it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not how I say it, it's what the fuck I said. How you perceive it ain't got shit to do with me. How you understand it ain't got shit to do with me, but it takes masculine men to be able to do that. It takes masculinity first, not manly. Manly is some emotional shit. This is why they arguing. What is a man? The fuck you mean, what is a man? A nigga with an XY chromosome. That's a man. The fuck? No, man is a social construct, protect and provide. And this is something that get me too. These same women will say, they'll side with woman is a social construct, but I need a real man. You can't have no real social construct, my nigga. What the fuck is it? It's an emotional description. Protect and provide. That's the basis of their description. That's how they describe emotionally because that's what they need emotionally. Intellectually, what is a man? Because now when we actually layer it and we open it up, I talk about this in Soul Frail 3. When we actually open it up, if a man is supposed to protect and provide and he's the leader, that means he has to teach you how to protect and provide for yourself, how he protects and provides for you. He has to teach his sons how to protect and provide for them, his sons and daughters, his kids, how to protect and provide for themselves as he would protect and provide for them. Since we're using the real man shit and we're using protective and provide, now, how many women don't want to don't want that part? I forgot what episode it was, but I was talking about how women they don't really want a man to lead. They want a horse in front of their carriage. They want a Clydesdale in front of their fucking carriage. That's all. Because when it's time to actually love and correct and change, don't nobody want to change. Don't nobody want to go through that transformation. Because if I'm going to protect and provide for you, I have to teach you. I have to teach you how to protect and provide for yourself how I do. You see what I'm saying? It's not hard. It's not hard. And this is where it gets to where, women, I don't want to, your masculine ain't turned off. They're turned on. There is no masculinity here. We got to get that out. With all of these emotional descriptions, there's no masculinity. There's no go through any podcast except mine. Go through any podcast that you listen to, any conversation you have. Everybody's talking about masculinity and they're all giving you an emotional description. Not a single motherfucker is giving you an intellectual definition outside of me. That's a dramatic pause. I'm not tooting my horn. I'm just speaking the facts. I'm speaking the facts. Go to any podcast that you listen to. Ask them what masculinity is. They're going to give you an emotional description. This is what they feel. There's no idea. There's no concrete idea that we all can agree on. From top to bottom, there's when I define masculinity as spiritual, mental, and physical embodiment of the essence of analysis and deconstruction, that's not debatable. That's not debatable. I can show you physically. I can show you mentally. I can show you spiritually. I can show you biologically. I can show you ethically. I can show you morally what this looks like in a man naturally exhibiting himself to do analysis and deconstruction, even down to the biological level of semen and shit like that. I can show you how we're created for analysis and deconstruction. I can show you how women are created for synthesis and construction. Just naturally. Those are concrete definitions that are not going to change. But when I have this emotional description, I'm now going to try to define something based off what I feel and what I want and what I desire. Go back into lust. The average woman, when she talks about the man that she wants, it's either the man that her father was or the man that she wanted her father to be. I mean, I get it from the I guess the lust side of things and the sexy side of shit, where motherfuckers be like, yeah, my shorty got to call me daddy, or shorty call me daddy, or whatever the case may be. I don't want a woman to call me daddy. I don't. That's an emotional description. I don't want you to call me daddy. Don't. My fucking name is Racine. Like, call me by my name. I am not your daddy. I am not your father. Now, it's like, I've never heard a man say that, because that's what men pride themselves on, like being like, if you're willing to disrespect your father, I can only imagine what you do to me. You have one father, one daddy, one father. And if you're calling another man daddy, regardless if that's your man, y'all in love or whatever the case may be, you're calling that man father. You're calling that man daddy. In my opinion, that's if I have daughters and they call another motherfucker daddy, I will feel disrespected. Ain't no way around that shit. I don't know how y'all will feel, but that's disrespectful. Now I get it. On my side, that's a level of respect, honor, and praise when she calls me daddy. But that's if she's willing to disrespect her own daddy. This nigga gave you life and he's been with you your entire life. And I'm only speaking on the fathers that are there, because there's fathers that are there and the women will still. I've seen videos on social media where a motherfucker, a shorty's recording a video with her husband and her dad, or her boyfriend and her dad, and the same, she be like, daddy, and they both respond and say, yeah. Ain't none of that. That's disrespectful to your daddy. That's disrespectful to your father. But now we wonder, well, why don't women, like, you can show me how much respect you have for a man by how much respect you have for your dad. I know women, I've dated women, I fucked with women who called their daddy a bitch ass nigga. If that's the respect you have for your daddy, I can only imagine I can only envision the respect that you really have for me. I can't be oblivious to that shit just because you call me daddy. Especially when I hear conversation when you actually have a father in your life, or you have a daddy in your life, and you like, nah, I'm going to call another man daddy. That's crazy, but that's an emotional description. Because he cares as my father does. He does that and the third. But are you fucking your father? Are you fucking your dad? Like, no, you're not. That's incest. Why would I even want to even put that energy onto a motherfucker? Because there's no ideation. How the fuck is a daddy and a father not a social construct? Oh shit, I'm cooking, bro. I'm cooking. I'm about to heat the fuck up, y'all. I feel it. It's coming. It's coming. But yeah, there's no intellectual definition to that. You feel me? There's no intellect. It's only emotional description. This is why it's so easy to put that emotional description on anything. And this is why motherfuckers' mental health be fucked up, because they put so many, their emotions, once their emotions are wired, they can change their mind. They'll change their descriptions or whatever it is. Tying it back into the political parties and how they come and they pander to, they pander. The fuck you think pandering is? I'm going to cater to your emotions. I'm going to give you an emotional description of something and tell you that it's right. And you're going to say, yes, it's right because of how it makes me feel. That's how religion works, bro. This is one of the reasons why men have issues with religion and we can't figure it out. Like, women can be wrapped up into a religion easily because the pastors, everything is tied to the emotionality of a woman. That's what the book is not about knowledge. It's about what you feel. The religion, the cult, all of that shit is not about intellect. It's about emotion. You feel me? You give an emotional description of shit. Everybody says the same shit. They'd be like, this is like, how does this make me feel? But we tie what we feel and we make it seem as if it's what we know, and it's not, because there's no idea. There's no idea behind it. There's no intellectual definition behind a lot of the shit that we have internalized as real for us. It's people. Now, as men, this is why men have a problem with the religion, because we go into religion naturally, intellectually defining shit. We be like most men, the average man who's a religious man, he was led to religion by a woman. In some way, shape, or form, the reason why he's tied to a religion, it has something to do with a woman. The womb he came from, or the womb he's going into, or the womb he's trying to get into. This is why I had that conversation about on So Frail Conversations, masculine spirituality. This is why I had your masculine spirituality needs to be rooted in intellectual definition, not emotional description. The societal standard right now says you view spirituality through the emotional descriptive lens. That's not the case. That's really not the case, and that's not how it goes. When you don't have the intellectual definition, you're missing a whole half of spirituality, bro. Because if spirit does mean breath, and the metaphor and the reasoning behind why spirit meant breath was for balance, even when you look at the word psyche, that etymologically goes back to the word spirit. What makes your spirit? Your emotions and your ideas. Your emotions and your intellect. And a thought is a combination of both of those things. Those things come hand in hand. You simultaneously feel you feel an idea, and you feel you have the feeling and the idea at the same time. That's what creates the thought. So it moves faster than light. Happens that fast. But alas, as men, we miss that point because we don't have the intellectual definition, because there's no masculinity. And that's one of the biggest mind fucks ever, because it's like, but this is a patriarchal society. Yeah, rooted off of emotional description. Emotional description. Not fact, but how I feel about my opinions. This is why motherfuckers were like, yo, we gotta agree you can't agree to disagree about a fact. If I say the sky is blue and you're adamant that the sky is purple, you have an emotional description to the shit. There's no intellectual definition. This is why you can say, I gotta agree to disagree, or you just gotta understand it. No, you have an emotional description of the shit. And your emotional description is why shit is so fucked up for you. Because you're emotionally wired to a description that is subject to change. You feel what I'm saying? As opposed to having an intellectual decision that is unchanging. An intellectual definition that is unchanging. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy, but this is because masculinity is gone, my nigga. When you don't have the analysis and deconstruction, you're not going to define anything intellectually. But when you only have synthesis and construction, you don't have any raw materials, all you can do is make an emotional description of the shit. That's wild when you really think about it. That's wild as fuck when you really think about it. Because this is how the political correctness and shit turns in. Like, you can't say certain shit because of how motherfuckers gonna feel. So when we talk about reading comprehension, nigga, most motherfuckers, because of their reading comprehension being fucked up and they can't comprehend beyond that of a 12-year-old, what do you think emotionally they can't comprehend behind? You ever seen motherfuckers crash out for nothing? Like, you can't be emotionally sound if you're crashing out because you have emotional descriptions that keep you at a certain level. This is how this makes me feel. But is that really what it was? No, that's how it made you feel. That's not the definition, though. I don't care what the facts, I don't care how you feel about facts. Your feelings are not valid if they do not align with the intellectual definition. I don't give a fuck what your emotional description is. Case in point, I'm gonna tie it to this. When we consider Jesus, there's an emotional description of that shit. There's not an intellectual definition. And I'm gonna say it like this, because when you look at, Jesus, when they describe him in the book, they said he has hair of wool, skin of burnt bronze. We had to be told that. Like, motherfuckers already believe Jesus was white. You had to be told that Jesus was black, but it's emotionally wired to the white guy or whatever. But either way, we're not even going to look at the race or whatever, but we're going to talk about how there's an emotional description. There's no intellectual definition of Jesus. There's only an emotional description of him. There's no intellectual definition of Muhammad. There's only an emotional description of him. What motherfuckers feel about this shit? Motherfucker, they ain't never met a day in their life. But how they emotionally feel connected to something. Now, what is that emotional connection, that emotional description based off? Fear. Oh, I have faith. And how do you have faith in some shit like walk by faith and not by sight? That's emotional description like a motherfucker. So many motherfuckers don't have the intellectual definitions of shit and they build their entire life off the emotional description. And by building their entire life off the emotional description, they fuck up their entire reality and don't even know it. So we have the man whose skin is burnt bronze, hair of wool. You feel what I'm saying? And we eat him. We eat the nigga every fourth Sunday. But then we don't even eat pumpernickel bread. Because pumpernickel bread will be the bread that will look burnt. You feel me? That will most closely resemble the skin. But the actual ritual of communion is to eat of the flesh and drink the blood of Jesus. You have an emotional description to that shit. This is why you can look at the matzah bread and the matzah bread ain't black. The matzah bread does not resemble burnt bronze in any way, shape, or form. It's a cracker. Literally. What the fuck does it look like? A fucking cracker. Like, literally. And that's what you eat. Again, intellectual definition puts this shit into perspective. Emotional description don't. Emotional description says, you know what? It's communion. It doesn't matter. Like, this is why motherfuckers say, what does his race really matter? Yes, it does. Because that's the distinguishing factor between the master and the slave, the oppressor and the oppressed. The emotional description. Now, I'm going to wire this emotional description to you to make you become whatever I need you to become. That's crazy. I'm just using that from a religious perspective because now when you constantly put that in motion and people say his race doesn't matter, his race doesn't matter to you because you are benefiting the side of the oppressor, not the oppressed. It definitely matters to the oppressed because now psychologically, if I think this motherfucker that I'm supposed to be believing in 100% doesn't look like me, what the fuck you think that's supposed to do for me? What you think that's supposed to do for me? But you know, all of this would be solved if masculinity was present. Because you will analyze and deconstruct the shit. They don't want you questioning shit. They don't want you analyzing and deconstructing a motherfucking thing. They want you to be emotionally wired to the shit. Have an emotional description of everything you're talking about. This is how you can have motherfucking black women saying they don't know what a woman is. I never forget that lady. She got moved into Congress or whatever the case may be, and I don't know what a woman is. That's a social construct and all this shit. No, the fuck it's not. You're a fucking woman saying you don't know what the fuck a woman is. But here's a kicker. Women will say they'll simultaneously say that a woman is a social construct, but then say it's a red flag for a man to call a woman a female. What? Y'all don't want to be called women because y'all don't know what the fuck those are. So I gotta call you females because that's what's right. Do you call other men? Do you call men males or do you call men men? I call them men. You know why? Because men are not the ones saying that a man is a social construct. The fuck? But when you had that emotional description to it, that's how you create your red flags. That's how you can create the mentality of what you think, what you perceive your life to be. Every red flag is emotional. Who dictates your feelings though? When you share red flags with somebody, that means you share their feelings. And if you share their feelings, that means you share their emotional description of shit. That's why it resonates. I used to always say this shit. And depending on how long y'all been rocking with me, y'all would hear me say, when I would say some shit to somebody and they don't know it, they be like, this resonates. No, it don't. How the fuck does it resonate? Because it feels good. I align with your emotional descriptions of shit. But what you don't realize is that I'm not speaking from an emotional description. I'm speaking from an intellectual definition. That's why the shit don't change. That's why the shit will not change within me. When I actually say something, I'm going to say it the same way. I might be able to tweak the details a little bit, but the core principle is going to be the same. I'm not going to get to a point where I can't explain myself. That's an emotional description, because if I can't explain what the fuck I'm trying to say, I don't know what I'm talking about. And if I can't explain it, that means I have tied an emotional description to something and I can't even describe it. I just know it gives me an emotion. That's crazy, my nigga. That's crazy as fuck. When you really think about that shit and put it on paper, that's crazy as fuck. But look at social media. Look at social media. Tying it into the motherfuckers who don't have good reading comprehension skills. And then this aspect of emotional description and no intellectual definitions. Motherfuckers will see what words they see and only respond to the words that emotionally trigger them. Now I'm going to give you my emotional description of what the fuck you're talking about. Nigga, that's not what the fuck I'm talking about. Where are you getting that from? I remember one time I had made this post. Somebody had tagged me. It was a post about masculinity, and it was like the question was why don't men protect? Why do I like? Because they scared to fight. Like y'all don't get it. Everybody's not a warrior. Everybody's not a gangster. Everybody doesn't like. I get it. You want that ideal man, social construct and shit. You want that man who's gonna protect you, who can protect you. Some niggas can't protect from violent Some niggas can't protect from everybody. I get it. You would want your man to be able to beat everybody up, but your man can't beat everybody up. Even boxers take L's, bro, and they do that shit professionally. Except Floyd, but Floyd is smart. He creates an intellectual definition. He doesn't emotionally describe. He's not an emotional descriptive person. I seen a motherfucker say some shit like, it was like, Floyd Mayweather only takes the fights he's gonna win. Nigga, that's how you fight. The fuck? That's how you win. Like that's how you have an undefeated record, by taking the fights you're going to win. Ain't no ifs, ands, or maybes about that shit. You fight where you going to win. Even in the art of war, it says the battle is already won before you go to war, because you already know what's gonna happen. You just gotta let it play out. If you don't know the outcome of the fight, ain't no way you're gonna win it. You feel what I'm saying? But these things play out because when we're so wired to the emotional side of the shit, we don't look at the reality. So the post was asking, and the shorty was asking, like, why? I was like, could they scared to get beat up? See, where the real men at is, I'm not saying I'm scared to take a loss. I'm not saying I'm scared to fight. I'm speaking that I know violent niggas. I grew up around violent niggas, bro. I'm a violent motherfucker myself. I grew up around this shit. I'm not afraid of violence. Because I understand from the intellectual definition, and not just the emotional description, that violence is the response to danger. In order for me to be able to comfortably get violent with something, I need to know how dangerous it really is. So now she's mad. That's no excuse. I didn't say it was an excuse. I'm telling you the reason. This is not an excuse. I don't give a fuck how you feel about this and you want to describe it as not. No, this is a valid reason. Have you seen the depths of violence that men can take, that men can go through? Probably not. I mean, you probably have, depending on where you're from. But women think that all men are supposed to be able to respond to danger to the same capacity. That's not the case. There's always going to be a nigga more violent than you. And now we tie in that definition of the intellectual definition to the emotional description. When the emotions are involved, that violence can change. It's aware that we in danger. Now it's like, what do I have to do to this right now? I have to neutralize this violence. Like, we look at the young bulls and shit and be like, yo, these niggas is killing. They not fighting no more. No. We already understood shit. I remember when it started to transition for me. It used to be one-on-one fights. Used to be. Now, mind you, this is within my 35 years. I've seen this. I've been fighting since I was 5. But I seen the one-on-one fair ones where you dap it up and like, I'm going to run you through the timeline. From the time I started fighting when I was 5, that's 1995. 1995. There were one-on-one phase. By the time I was 11 years old, that's 2001. By the time I was 11 years old, that's when the phase started turning into jumps. Like now you start jumping niggas and shit. By the time I was 17, motherfuckers was shooting each other. They had already bypassed the point of, nah, nigga, because you jumped me, now I got to go get my niggas. My niggas got, no, we're going to solve that whole problem. I'm just not going to lose the fight because I'm going to kill you right here. Oh, you dangerous, nigga? I got to be more dangerous than you. I got to be violent. I got to put you down. Simple. Simple, but there's an intellectual definition behind that. And there's an emotional description. We're not preparing our boys, like, to take L's. Nobody wants a loser, bro. Nobody wants to be with a loser, so I'm going to kill you. I can't lose that. And I don't need funny shit. I'm not trying to be funny. But like, yo, if you want to head up and I shoot you, you didn't win. You can't win. You won't win. There's not even a 50-50 chance that I might come out on, no, nigga, you won't win. I'm going to shoot the shit right at you. But that's an emotional description of what a real nigga is. That's an emotional description of what a warrior is. That's barbaric. This is why, with that, tying it into, sticking with the young bulls and shit, this is why kids get hurt. This is why innocent people get hurt. War is supposed to be between warriors, bro. Everybody ain't a warrior. But you have people that aren't warriors born in war zones. What the fuck you think they gonna do? A warrior, a regular motherfucker born in a war zone has to figure out how to survive the war, my nigga. It's just the way it is. It's just the way that cookie's gonna crumble. You feel me? But we don't want to look at it like that. We don't want to accept it for what it really is. So to the point where shorty, she's spazzing saying men are weak and men this and that third. No, your emotional description is now labeled men as weak because you don't have the intellectual definition to say, you know what, this particular person or this particular situation or this particular circumstance is built like that. All men ain't like that. But when you have an emotional description to some shit, all men are like that. All women are going to be like that. All people are going to be like that. That's how stereotypes are developed. There's no intellectual definition in that shit. But when you take the man out of the home, you don't just take the man out of the home. First, you take the masculinity out of the man, and then you take the man out of the home. The reason being is because if you take the masculinity out of the man first, even if he is in the home, it won't make a difference because he's going to have emotional descriptions as well. He's not going to have intellectual definitions. He's going to have emotional descriptions of shit. That don't do shit. That don't help in any way, shape, or form. Creates this crazy ass society we live in where all you have to do is feel a certain way. All you have to do is feel a certain way. I remember when I first got shadow banned in 2020 because I made a post after Joe Biden signed that shit about trans women can compete in women's sports. No. But that community had an emotional description and they was like, oh, that's wrong. That's not wrong. Why don't you, okay, you niggas, if that's what y'all want to go play against other trans women, no, I want to play against real women. It's not a social construct then. It ain't a social construct then. It's a clear distinction then. You feel me? It's a clear distinction then. And then it's just not fair. You know why? Because you sucked as a man. You sucked as a man, but that's a different, deeper psychology of misogyny. I suck as a man, so I'm going to go become a woman. Because I know I'm better than women. It's crazy, right? But yet, the women are the ones supporting this shit. They're supporting their erasure. They're supporting their motherfucking erasure. Social constructs, though. Social constructs. It's all a social construct because it creates a societal norm. But societal norms are only established off of emotion. You feel what I'm saying? Motherfuckers be emotionally wired to shit. That's it. They be emotionally wired to shit. And in them being emotionally wired to the shit, they fuck up a whole reality of life that ain't got to be fucked up. So when you get to these conversations that you have where niggas is not emotionally sound, if a motherfucker is emotionally retarded, emotionally unavailable, not emotionally sound, they have poor emotional intelligence, they have a low EQ, what do you think their description is going to look like? Sticking to it from the intellectual definitions, when a motherfucker has a sound intellectual definition to some shit, they're not shaking. They even can build off of that shit. You feel what I'm saying? Let's look at math, for example. Mathematics can be broken down to a platitude of disciplines. A plethora or platitude of disciplines, right? A motherfucker, now this is where the emotional side comes in. Because a motherfucker who intellectually is only defined arithmetic will speak to a motherfucker who has emotionally defined calculus as if, nigga, because we talking about math. Nigga, we're not talking about math. The fuck? You're nowhere near where I am. But emotionally, you feel like you are because we're talking about math. I've had conversations with people who would try to diminish what I say because of the tenure they've had in this world. I've been on this earth longer than you. And you've also had emotional descriptions of shit. You don't know shit. You know how to emotionally respond to some shit. That's it. You know how to emotionally describe some shit according to how it's going to make you feel, not what it is. Because if you can get to what it is, Law of Relativity, if you can get to really what it is, you can change your circumstances and you won't. Hey, bro, for real though, at some point we got to stop talking to women about masculinity and start talking to each other about it. And I mean really talk to each other. Not as enablers and co-signers, but as men trying to reach the pinnacle of our essence. And that's what the So Frail series does. So Frail 1 is the definition. So Frail 2 is the acknowledgement. And So Frail 3 is the resolution. If you rock with the So Frail conversations, I can guarantee you will rock with the So Frail series of books. So visit IamJustSaying.com right now so you can add the series to your library. I promise you will never look at masculinity the same again, and you're going to stop wasting your time arguing with women about it. This is a conversation that men need to have between men, and it's time we start having this conversation now. But you don't. You feel me? I had somebody tell me, the vagus nerve, it fucks with your stomach and it fucks with your brain and your thinking. No, it don't. I know what I read. I know what I saw. I know what I've studied. You have an emotional description. I have an intellectual definition of the vagus nerve. You have an emotional description of the vagus nerve. Our conversation is not going to be the same. Because when I ask you, as with the emotional description, all you know is that the vagus nerve supposedly affects the stomach. I'm like, how? Because it goes to the stomach. No, it doesn't. It stops at the diaphragm. That's above the stomach. Why is it called the vagus nerve? I don't know. Because it's called the vagus nerve because vagus comes from the vagabond, which means traveler. And the vagus nerve means it's the longest traveling nerve. That's why they call it the vagus nerve. I have definition. Do you want to keep going or do you want to stop? I know what I read. I know what I've experienced, my nigga. What cranial nerve is the vagus nerve? I don't know. Well, shut the fuck up. It's cranial nerve 10, by the way. But shut the fuck up. This is what happens when we have emotionally descriptive motherfuckers. This is where you get the idea of loud and wrong. Intellectual definition leaves you quiet and right. Now, some people don't go back and forth, not because of the intellectual definition, but because they know they don't want to get emotionally wired within it. This is where the phrase comes in. When you're seeing from the outside looking in, when somebody's arguing with a fool from the outside looking in, somebody can't tell who's who. Yes, you can. You can't tell the difference between who the fool is when you're looking at it from the emotional description perspective, because it's like two doofy motherfuckers describing how they feel about something. You feel what I'm saying? But when you have an intellectual definition meeting with an emotional description, you're gonna know who's the fool and who's not. Trust me. This is one of the reasons why I say when I come to y'all conversations, when I come into the conversation about anything, I set the tone with the definition. Because anything outside of that definition, I'm not talking about. It's that simple for me. And if if your definition or even if your description is nowhere near what I'm talking about, you're gonna be left looking stupid. you're going to be left looking stupid as fuck. And whose fault is that? It ain't mine. But we're going to know who's the fool and who's not. I don't play those semantics. I don't play those games. You're not about to make it look like I'm not talking about what the fuck I'm talking about. Because everything has to have an intellectual definition with it if you're going to have the emotional description. Because the two have to work in tandem. Because if you don't have the intellectual definition, your emotional description can be infinite. This is where the circle and the square comes in. This is what they mean when they say 360 degrees of consciousness. Both the square and the circle both are measured in 360 degrees. Two totally different shapes, but the circle is infinite and the square is finite. But rather than finite, I'm going to say eternal. Now I'm gonna say finite. I'm gonna stick to finite. That's a whole different conversation why I was gonna say eternal. But I'm gonna use that in a different conversation, different podcast episode. Now, when you have the emotional description, there's an infinite. I broke this down beautifully in So Frail too. When I was talking about, if I say, here's right now is gonna be intellectual definition and emotional description. If I say there's a brown dog, there's a black dog, there's a black and brown dog. That's all I'm gonna say for now. Black and brown dog. That's the fact. That's the idea. That's the point that we're dealing with. A black and brown dog, right? Emotional description is, it can be a mutt. It could be a mix. It could be a Labrador lab mix. It could be this, that, and the third. Does it have spots? Does it have this? Do you see how many different infinite conversations, infinite combinations of things you can put together to define what you're talking about? That is an emotional description. Does it make it a fact? Does it make it real? Does it make it? No. Not until you actually know what kind of dog I'm talking about. Your emotional description can be whatever the fuck you want it to be on how you feel. You feel me? But you have to know what kind of dog I'm talking about. Intellectual definition. If I say a brown and black dog, you can narrow it down to a Doberman or a Rottweiler. As opposed to a mixed dog that you can put a plethora of things in, that is emotional description. As opposed to intellectual definition, is it a Rottweiler or a Doberman? Okay, now let me add a little bit more details to it. It's slender, it's tall, it has brown paws, and it's all black with a little brown around the mouth. Now you know it's a Doberman. You feel me? You know it's a Doberman now. Because the description that I just gave you and all of the details of what I just gave you narrowed it down from the intellectual definition. This is a Doberman. It ain't gonna change. I don't give a fuck what language I speak. It's gonna be, the dog itself is gonna be a Doberman. I don't give a fuck what name it's called in another language. It's gonna be a fucking Doberman. Right? But when I still have these emotional descriptions, how do you know it's a Doberman? It could just be a pit bull with fucking brown paws and a brown mouth because it was a bit like, do you see how this emotional description shit takes over the fucking mind? I'm just using a dog. I'm literally talking about a Doberman Pinscher. It's tall, slender, has a slim face. It's tall, slender, it's all black, has brown paws, brown on the face. Snoop Dogg looks like it. Now you see how it's getting more and more narrow. It's like, nigga, he do kind of look like a Doberman. He did transform into a Doberman in his music videos because he looked like a Doberman. And but yet you're still going to put that it's a pit bull. You're still going to put that it's a lab. It could be Lassie, and it could just be, you don't know. You don't know. This is why you need intellectual definition. Otherwise, emotional description is going to run rampant in your fucking mind. Take you to places that you're not supposed to be. So now, when you get on social media and you say, I don't like oranges. Well, I do. Oranges are pretty good. Bitch, that ain't got shit to do with me. Your emotional description, because I said I don't like something that you don't like. I said I don't like something that you like. You now have an emotional attachment to that. You have an emotional trigger to it and you feel the need to describe. There's no fact there. There's nothing there but your fucking feelings. The intellectual definition was right there. And I'm talking about myself. I do not like oranges. Why the fuck do you think I care that you do? Well, I feel that I don't give a fuck what you feel. This is the point that I'm making with that. Your feelings are not valid if there is no intellectual definition behind what you feel. As men, we have even gotten into this space. As men, we are in this space where we have wired the emotional description to the shit. And we call it fact. We call it values. We call it logic. No, nigga, that's not logic. That's a justifiable emotional description. That's not logic. This is why niggas love to quote stats. The statistics show this, that, and the third. It's the stats. The stats, numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. True, indeed. But numbers can manipulate. And they manipulate by catering to what? Emotional description. Because I don't have the intellectual definition behind this shit. For example, I'm going to use this because I'm talking about stats. When people say, the stats say this, that, and the third, do you know what a stat is? Do you know what statistics are used for? No. Shut the fuck up. There's no point in quoting statistics if you don't know what statistics are used for. Because you have to have the intellectual definition of a statistic to even know, to even keep from going off the deep end with the emotional description that you're going to have. The statistics, all statistics reveal the efficacy of a system that is in place. It's not just random shit. They're just not random numbers. They show the efficacy of a system. So if I'm telling you, case in point, if I'm telling you that Kobe is better than Jordan, or if I'm telling you that LeBron is better than Jordan, first thing a motherfucker gonna do is check the stats. Jordan got 6 rings. He didn't lose this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get your emotional description. Let's look at the intellectual facts. You can't. Statistics reveal the efficacy of a system. Jordan's system generated him 6 rings. If LeBron would have been on Jordan's system, he would have won, but he was on LeBron's system. Hence why LeBron is the greatest scorer. You feel what I'm saying? He's the greatest scorer ever and still going, but he's the greatest scorer ever. And I get it. Niggas like, no, he's not the greatest. Nigga, he got the most points. How do you validate a score? By the points. It has to go into the basket. Nigga. If you have more points, that means more of your shots have gone into the basket than anybody. You're the best scorer. Give a fuck how you score them. That's the objective side. But then you have the emotional side. Niggas have become emotionally wired to this shit, so they describe the opinions as if they're facts. And they use stats to show that. Well, Jordan got 6 rings, so he's better than Kobe. Well, Kobe got 5 rings, and he did it with 2 different teams, and he did it without the man they said he couldn't do it with. If Jordan would have got 3 rings, retired, came back, and got another 3 rings without Pippen, it's more valid. Kobe did it without Shaq. He didn't get 3, he got 2, but he did it without Shaq. Jordan didn't do it without Pippen, but we'll never know. That's why it makes it an emotional description. Because it can't be an intellectual definition. But when you look at it from the intellectual definition perspective, yeah, well, he did it 2 different ways, even if he only got 2 rings. Now, when you put that into a comparison, well, LeBron he brought rings to multiple franchises. Now, your emotional description said, but he was team hopping. But nigga, he brought it's a perspective at that point, relativity. He brought championships to multiple teams. I don't get what y'all don't get. But because it's the emotional description, our world is built off of that right now. This is why what you say can trigger how a motherfucker feels. And this is what you said to me, but was I lying? Children are viewed as disrespectful for being honest. Did they lie? No. They didn't lie. They told the fucking truth. You just didn't like the truth that they fucking told. Why? Because you have an emotional description about yourself. You have an emotional description about circumstances. You have an emotional description about certain things that won't let you tell yourself the truth. That child gave you the intellectual definition. Your breath stank. That's rude. I was in I want to say the 8th grade, maybe. Had to be. No, it was the 6th grade. Because I remember the guy that was in a class with me. We had a substitute teacher. Halitosis is an understatement. Her fucking breath smelled dead. Like, it wasn't like some motherfuckers they have bad breath and you can like probably tolerate it a little bit. No, Like, you couldn't get past 5 minutes with her. Like, soon as it hit your nose, you were gagging. It was that fucking bad. So one guy told her, yo, your breath stinks. Because she got too close, and she rolled him up, or whatever the case may be. So he's in the office, and he's like, man, she was just too close talking to me, and I just you didn't have to say. Yes, you did. That was an intellectual definition. Her breath stunk across the board. Everybody said it. But it's like, damn, this shit would, when I say it literally turned your stomach, it would turn your fucking stomach. That's how bad it was. She smelled like she was dying, bro. Like, for real. Like, it was different. It's like, did you even brush this morning? Like, the fuck? This is horrible. When was the last time you brushed? Your mouth is bad, motherfucker. What the fuck? But the emotional description, you're not supposed to talk to me like that. You're not supposed to hurt my feelings. Your breath should not be that disrespectful, yo. Like, I'm just saying, it is what it is. But these are the parts of the reality that we live in now. The emotional descriptions. Niggas hate the intellectual definition because the intellectual definition quells the fucking emotional description. You can't go, like I said, once you know that I'm talking about a Doberman, it don't matter. It does not matter how many possibilities of dogs you can have that are black with brown paws and a brown mouth. Nigga, it's either a Doberman or a Rottweiler. And when I said it's not, when I said that it's not, when I said it's tall and slender and not short and chubby, you automatically knew which one it was. You automatically knew which one it was. You feel what I'm saying? But we leave so much ambiguity for this shit solely so motherfuckers can be confused. But this is why masculinity is gone. That was a dramatic pause. But this is why masculinity is gone. Because of the analysis and deconstruction that masculinity brings to reality. Niggas hate reality, bro. We got to keep it a bean. Niggas hate fucking reality. So they live in a fantasy based off of the emotional descriptions that they have. They can tell themselves whatever they want to tell themselves and it'll be right. And then they'll go gravitate towards people to keep that emotional description alive. Don't nobody want the truth, bro. They want their belief affirmed. That's it. They want their beliefs reaffirmed. And I'm not going to be one of them motherfuckers say, yo, that's why niggas hate me. No, that's why motherfuckers love me. That's why motherfuckers love me. Like, you know how motherfuckers will say some shit like, yo, that's why niggas, like, your perception is that you really believe that niggas hate you. Your emotional description of yourself is that people, and your experience with people is that they hate you. I don't have that experience. Motherfuckers love me. Motherfuckers love the fuck out of me. They love me for that very reason. They be like, yo, bro, you stand on business. How you cause I'm making an intellectual definition of some shit before I even make an emotional description. Because that allows me to take the emotion out of it to say, hey, this is what it is. And ain't no changing this shit. You can't go the other way with that shit. But that came from developing masculinity and being able to identify that. I've always been on this. Like, people be like, just because y'all have a better argument than you. This is why niggas get loud. You ever notice when a motherfucker is getting their ass whooped in an argument, they start yelling? That's not making your argument better. That's just showing that your argument is that weak. Because your emotional description, you can't, because the way in which you wired your emotional descriptions and you don't have any intellectual definitions, your emotional descriptions is they've been shot. Now you think yelling is the only thing that's going to silence it. No, it's not. It doesn't change the fact of what it is that you're dealing with. That's one of the things that people, I know I just said motherfuckers hate me, but that's one of the things that people dislike about me when it comes to me talking about religion. Everybody loves everything I put out till I start talking about religion. Like, as if suddenly I didn't do the same due diligence I did with everything else that I did with religion. Nigga, really? You think that? Nah, it's because you have an emotional description to the shit and you're not willing to hear the intellectual definition because it's going to change your reality. Like when a motherfucker says, you know, chakras are demonic. Well, what do you think the 7 seals are? You feel me? Using crystals and essential oils is, you know, using astrology is like, nigga, how you think the wise men found Jesus, nigga? They used the stars. Fuck is you talking about? You dig what I'm saying? But a lot of people can't see that because they have been emotionally wired to the description that they can't even see. They have made the emotional description fact that they can't see the intellectual definition. The intellectual definition is unchanging. Like, for example, intellectual definition, even deeper. Why motherfuckers be like, they can't, when I had, let me slow down. I had a motherfucker try to laugh at me and the joke was on him. We was on threads and shit, and I ended up making him delete all of his posts. Not because I told him, not because I had to block him, no, but because my intellectual definition could not be shaken with your emotional description. No matter how much you thought your emotional description was. This is what I was talking about in the Law of Relativity episode where I was saying, any lie can be made a truth and any truth can be made a lie. This is how. This is fucking how. So me and this dude is arguing. And I said something about the ancestors. He's like, yo, fuck your ancestors. They got us. I said, so you mean to tell me you're going to say fuck my ancestors and blame my ancestors because your deity sent you into bondage because your ancestors wouldn't listen? Y'all were hard-headed, not us. Like, we didn't do shit to y'all. Y'all couldn't listen. Y'all still can't listen, apparently, because y'all are still in the same shit. The fuck that got to do with me? Because you have that emotional description tied to it. Like when black people read the doctrines and they read and they say, only place black people fit in these books are as slaves. They don't get that. But this is why the book works the way it works. I don't want you to have the intellectual definition. Like when I talk to the Hebrew Israelites and they say, I'm like, y'all niggas from Africa too. No, we not. We're not African. Bitch. I'm sorry, I had to say it like that. Bitch, where the fuck does this whole story take place? In Northern Africa. I said, what the fuck is Hebrew? Hebrew is an Afro-Asiatic language, my nigga. Now, is you African or is you Asian? Do you feel what I'm saying? If it's an Afro-Asiatic language, nigga, are you African or are you Asian? We know you ain't Asian, but you're not African. Nigga, how the fuck is your language Afro-Asiatic, my nigga? Again, intellectual definition as opposed to emotional description. Oh, we the Hebrews, we the chosen people. Okay, cool. Do you speak Hebrew? Nah, but I'm gonna learn it. Okay, cool. So when you learn the language, you understand the phonetics. Go back and learn the alphabet. When you learn the alphabet, find out why there's 22 letters. And find out why each of these 22 letters is associated with the path of the tree of life. Matter of fact, look up the word abracadabra. Because it's so witchcrafty. Why is that a Hebrew word that means what I think I create? Or what I speak I create, something like that. One of the two. Oh, you don't know that? Oh, because you emotionally wired to the fact that you don't want to go to hell and you're trying to get into a place that only has a population of 144,000 motherfuckers. And when you break down each tribe, there's only 12. That means there's 12,000. Now here's where the math is about to get crazy. There's 12,000 motherfuckers for each tribe. Right? This shit about to get funny. There's 12,000 motherfuckers per tribe. So there's a population of 144,000 people for heaven. I ain't even gonna count. We already know how many people have already died. And how many funerals we've gone to, how many funerals we've seen of friends that I know that person is in a better place. Like it's only 144,000 people that can fit into heaven. And each of the people have to be of the 12 tribes of Israel. That's 12,000. This ain't no 50-50 split. Now you have to add into the fact that I forgot what verse it is, but it's a verse in the Bible that says every man who lives righteously or whatever is going to get 10 virgins to himself. The Quran says 72. We're not even going to go on that side. You have 10 virgins. 10 virgins. When we do the math, out of 144,000, for every one man to have 10 virgins, that means there's going to be, I think, like 13,091 men to 130,000 women. So when I ask the women, y'all gonna be the virgins, nigga. Y'all gonna be these niggas hoes. Heaven really only got a population for 13,000 men. Now there's 12 tribes of Israel. So that's about what? There's like literally 1.1 man for every. So even if you can get into heaven, there's only room for one man per tribe. Numbers don't lie, right? Numbers don't lie, right? And you really think you're going to be in the number? There's literally about 1.1 to 1.2 men, fraction of a man, and we're not rounding up to two. There's one man per every tribe of Israel, right? That means that one man, and there's going to be, for every one man, there's going to be 11,999 women in order to make up 144,000. It's a lot of hoes, bro. But you feel what I'm saying? When you emotionally wired to this shit and you think you're the chosen person, when you intellectually define this shit, you like, damn, nigga, the odds of me getting in this motherfucker slim to none. I know I done cussed the motherfucker out of two. I know I sinned. I know I done some shit. I know I'm not going to get in this motherfucker. I know you're not getting in this motherfucker either. You are in denial to the shit because now your narcissism is kicking in. Your emotional description of shit is kicking in because I'm the chosen one. I'm a chosen one. You're not. Ain't nothing special about you. The fuck you get chosen for? The fuck you get chosen for? You feel me? But this is why masculinity is not in the man no more. And this is why masculinity is not in the home. A masculine man truly reading this doctrine does not have the emotional description to the shit. But now you go to the church, you go to the mosque, and you go to they teach you to be emotionally wired to the shit. And that's what you call a real man. Social constructs and shit. I need a man who knows the word, who can do that. Like, do you really want a motherfucker who knows it? And my niggas, do you really want to be the man who knows this shit? Because I'm telling you, it's lonely. It's lonely. You literally can't fuck with anybody who's in a religious space. Because now you have to look at the bigger scale of all of this shit. You feel me? I talk to so many women who are on the fence going back and forth and not believing in this shit or whatever, but their family's still wired to it. I'm not shaking this shit. I'm not in a phase, my nigga. This is an intellectual definition. Your emotional descriptions don't shake me. At all. At all. Even into fast forwarding to the world from the political side, your emotional descriptions don't shake me. I don't give a fuck if you say we can't be friends no more because you don't believe in the same politics I believe in. I don't give a fuck because you don't know what politics are. You know how a politician is supposed to politically serve you and they don't. Like the intellectual definition of the Democrats not doing a motherfucking thing since every time they get our votes. Like, why do y'all niggas feel that way? And then, so that by default, I don't fuck with the Republicans either, nigga. I don't fuck with this shit. I don't give a fuck about covert racism. I don't give a fuck about overt racism. And while y'all worried about the covert and the overt, you're missing the goddamn racism, my nigga. You know why? Because you have the emotional description of the shit. Oh, the Democrats, they're not racist out loud. So I can fuck with them. Nigga, they racist. The Republicans, they're racist out loud. That's why I don't fuck with them. They're racist. They're flapping opposite wings of the racism bird, my nigga. Fuck is you talking about? Fuck is you talking about? You feel me? Like, this is the shit that gets me, like, when it comes to masculinity for real, because we don't know what we're truly lacking in this shit. We just don't. It sucks. I know it do. It sucks horribly because you don't know what it is that you're lacking in this motherfucker. And it all starts with the core of the definition of this shit. We don't have any intellectual definitions of anything. Everything is an emotional description. And we're calling it intellectual. It's not. You just got to believe that the motherfucker told you. Like if we're looking at the religion and the religious texts and shit, especially the Bible. I'm going to use the Bible only because I know the Bible better. We know that the earth is 65 million years old. 65 million years old. 65 million years old. How the fuck? Now, black people, we were the first here. We know that, right? When I was in med school, I had a genetics teacher say, he was like, as we know them today, white people, as we know them, only like 6,000 to 7,000 years old. As we know white people today, they're 6,000 to 7,000 years old, right? The quote unquote lighter skinned people are about 25,000, right? black people, us, extend to about 600,000 years. Geneticists said this, but I'm going to leave it at that. Just going to do the numbers. We have monuments that are anywhere between 10, 15,000 years old, BC shit, whatever. We have science, documented science that extends longer than that, right? Specifically, and I'm using these monuments and I'm using the science when it comes to cosmological astrology, where there's a 26,000 year precessional. It's really 25,590 years or some shit like that. And each zodiac sign spends about 2,100 years in that sign, right? In order to create a calendar, you have to have the cycle run 3 times, at least 3 times, to know that it goes from an occurrence to a coincidence to a cycle. So if this is 25,000 years, it's 26,000 years, multiply that by 3. You're going to get 78,000 years. Somebody has to be around 78,000 years in order to chronicle this. That's like saying, I thought you was, listen. Just listen. Just listen. In the Bible, the timestamp starts at 0 BC. We're in the year 2025, right? So from us to Jesus, it's 2,000 years. Okay? From Jesus to David, 2,000 years. From David to, is it Abraham or Moses? Either way, one of them two first. One of them two. 2,000 years. We're at 6,000 years now. Back. Right? From Moses or Abraham to Adam. Another 2,000 years. It's 4,000 years. Now, if there's another 2,000 years between Moses and Abraham, we'll be lenient and give it 8. 8,000 years, my nigga. 8,000 years since Adam. Adam was the first man. Now, before Adam, the world had to be created in 7 days. Well, 6, because on the 7th day he rested. But either way, 7 days. We'll give it 7, a full week. Now in the Bible it says 1 day for God is 1,000 years for man. So from these 7 days that it took God to create everything, that was 7,000 years before Adam. And I'm using 7 because it could necessarily be 6 if Adam was made on the 6th day. But we're going to keep it at the week because this is emotionally descriptive of what most people know. The 7 days, Adam, and all of that shit. 8,000 plus 7,000 is 15,000 years. 8,000 plus 7,000 is 15,000 years. From starting point of 2025, you're telling me that the earth was created, the earth was beginning to be created 15,000 years ago. Don't make no sense. It intellectually does not have any merit in that. When you say men have lived on this earth for 65, like this earth has been around for 65 million years. But as we know it, it's only 15,000 years old. When there's no intellectual defining or intellectual definition, you have to rely on emotional description. And when you have to rely on emotional description, you're easily manipulated. We're not even in the year 2025. The Gregorian calendar had to be changed. Simple shit. Simple shit. But when you are emotionally wired to this shit, it doesn't matter what the facts say. Your description is going to have any kind of verification that you needed to have in order to make it what it needs to be. This is why when you get thoughts or whatever the case may be, when you hear something new, there's a feeling that comes over you, not a thought. How come ideas aren't triggered anymore? Only our feelings and our emotions. And now you mean to tell, like, now, sticking to this on the religious side with the timestamp, like, you mean to tell me your feelings are valid? Because what you feel about this book, yeah, that I feel by the own volition of what's the context of this information, that the world is only 15,000 years old. The world is only 15,000 years old. You feel that way. You have an emotional description of that shit because you can break down everything that I just said is in the book. Everything that I just said is in the book. And you feel that. And you feel that it's fact. I didn't debunk it. I just laid out the information, gave a full definition for that shit. And now you could see it for yourself. That's masculinity. Analysis and deconstruction. That's masculinity. Not the emotional side that gives you the credence to justify the shit. And I know, why you talking about religion? Because that's easiest to talk about. Because niggas is so emotionally wired to religion. They have emotional descriptions of the shit. Even if you know the nigga name ain't Jesus and yet you still pray in Jesus' name. See how you were emotionally wired to this shit before you were intellectually wired to it? Because when you're intellectually wired to it, you can change your mind. You can't change your mind when you're emotionally wired to something. Sounds good. Sounds good. But now this same emotional wiring is how they program us into the school system. Because now I'm emotionally charged and emotionally tied to good grades. I'm emotionally tied to, so when I get them, that narcissism develops. We just be mad that a motherfucker was more narcissistic than us and fucked us the fuck over. Nigga, so the fuck what? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to change? How are you going to develop? What are you going to really change about yourself? Because this is why the law of relativity plays in. This is why it's like everything can be relative to the experiencer. But it's even deeper than that. It becomes relative to the experiencer when the experiencer doesn't have the intellectual definition of what they're emotionally describing. Because that's where the truth is going to be. That's where honesty is going to be. That's where it's really going to be what you want it to be. When it's all said and done and you present it with intellectual definitions and you still, what I feel is what I feel, you're insane. You're insane. But it's easy to maintain insanity when you go around other insane motherfuckers. You feel me? This is why I don't care about people who say shit like, yo, this certain thing is demonic, or I don't like this, or I don't like that, or I don't care, because I understand that what I'm speaking on is based off of an emotion and an intellectual definition. You're speaking from an emotional description. You can create whatever scenario you want. You can make whatever opinion you want valid as you think you need to make it. Doesn't make it valid. It makes it exactly what the fuck it is. And because we're so unused to things being what they are. You feel me? We lose sight of reality, bro. We lose our whole sight of reality. And that's what makes shit scary. Because if men are supposed to be the ones to do this, what happens? Because now, protect and provide. Protection ain't just physical. It's mental and spiritual too. If I know this shit is making you stupid, if I know this shit got you looking stupid, if I know this shit got you moving in a stupid way, and I don't put you on game to that shit, I don't fuck with you. Now, if I do put you on game with the shit and the intellectual definition you can't harmonize with, I can't fuck with you. Because your emotional description is going to supersede that shit. Because now we got to raise kids, bro. We got to raise kids in this shit. You feel me? It's one of the things, like, I don't want you to be emotionally wired to what I'm talking about. I don't want you to feel like, have the same emotional description that I have. That's why I tell you to go fact check me and prove that I'm wrong. But I give you an intellectual definition to stand on first. I don't give you my emotional description of what I feel and what I think should be done or what. No. Fuck all that. Fuck all that. Fuck all that. Nigga. This is what it is. This is what it is. And this is the relativity that has to be in play. Now go find it. When that nigga J. Edgar Hoover said, I fear the rise of a black messiah. I fear the motherfucker who can actually use the Messiah energy to know and get beyond the emotional descriptions. and get into the intellectual definition. This is why we got to keep them out of the books. We can't let them read. We can't let them learn. Now we can control everything that they learn because we don't want thinkers. We want feelers. We want emotional motherfuckers who base everything off opinion. And they base it off opinion of authority. Look up the Milgram experiment if you ever get a chance. Motherfuckers really heard that every time they pressed the button, they heard niggas screaming on the other side as if they're being electrocuted. And they would not stop listening to the fucking doctor that said this person's all right. Your intellectual definition literally told you this person is dying. This person is being electrocuted. But your emotional description that you were given from this doctor in the white coat that said, no, he's fine, made you supersede your own fucking logic, your own fucking humanity. And this is what we live in. This is the world we live in because a motherfucker don't like how something made them feel. This is why your feelings ain't valid. Your feelings will never be valid if your intellectual definitions are not right. And none of this shit matters if you don't know the words that you speak. You feel what I'm saying? It's good to try to laugh at motherfuckers who, you sound woke, you try to sound this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. Nigga, you have the emotional description of that shit. That's it. You maneuver through life through emotional descriptions. Ain't got not a single intellectual definition in you. What you think your life is going to be like? A bunch of fucking confusion. Somebody tell you something and the first thing you do is believe them. When I was heavy into religion, when I was in med school, everything I said, niggas believed. Everything I said. And I sometimes I would be purposely bullshit, but motherfuckers believed me because they trusted apparently what I was giving them. I wasn't giving them facts. I was just talking. I was giving my emotional description to shit. Now, you trust my emotional description more than yours because I have more education than you. Once I left religion and I left med school and shit and I left all of that shit behind, now motherfuckers is looking like your emotional descriptions ain't right. I'm not giving you emotional descriptions. I'm giving you intellectual definitions. That's why the shit ain't changing, bro. But this is why you can't talk to me because you know your emotional descriptions cannot bang with my intellectual definitions. And the intellectual definition is not just as simple as, I'm looking at this word. No. You have a clear defining of something to where no matter what it is, you're talking about that same thing in every conversation, the same way in every conversation. If you're talking about something differently, every time you talk about it, you don't know what you're talking about. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah, you can put other details in it. But if the core principle changes, you don't know what you're talking about. But you're emotionally wired to what you're talking about. And you think that being emotionally wired to what you're talking about is a fact when it's really an opinion. This is why it's so easy for motherfuckers to gossip and tell other people's business because they're emotionally charged to this shit. They have emotional descriptions. Now, you told me something about a motherfucker I didn't like already. So now I'm going to go tell that. How many times has a motherfucker told you something about a motherfucker you did like and you went and go told that? You don't. You keep that to yourself. Like that's bullshit. Like you can go share a motherfucker. You can share a motherfucker's bad news, but you can't share a motherfucker's good news. Why? Why is it so easy to share a motherfucker's bad news than it is to share their good news and shit? Like that's crazy. That's crazy. I got people that, my homies, friends, family, older, situations and shit. They can't share none of the shit that I'm doing. With none of when I was, I was in school getting my degrees, when I was doing all this shit, when I was in that space, niggas couldn't stop talking about me. Now I've done significantly greater things. I've written books. I've created courses. I've done things that most motherfuckers will not even fathom doing. But they're quiet about it. It's weird, right? It's weird. But it's because the emotional description is not there. They don't feel good about what I'm doing. What I'm doing doesn't make them feel good. So they can't share it. But what I'm doing does not change the intellectual definition of what it is. You feel what I'm saying? That's crazy. That's crazy as fuck. Because you are going to live in two different worlds. You're always going to live in two different worlds until you understand this principle. Like, you wonder why people can't support you. Like, I be telling people, they be like, yeah, on an entrepreneurship journey, like, motherfuckers, your family don't support you, your friends don't support you. They're not supposed to, because they have an emotional description of you. They don't have the intellectual definition of who you are. They have the emotional description of who you are. And some motherfuckers still see you as a little 5-year-old that used to piss in the bed. If you peed in the bed, I'm just talking shit. That's how some motherfuckers see you. Some motherfuckers cannot see you as you really are. On the other side of that, when you lead with your intellectual definition, there's motherfuckers who couldn't see you any other way. They know what they're seeing. You feel what I'm saying? Their emotional description to you is based off of your intellectual definition. But you have some people who will never be able to see your intellectual definition because they are already tied to an emotional description of you. That's crazy, right? But that's society. This is what happens when you take the man out of the home. Because you're not just taking the man out of the home, you're taking masculinity out of the man too. And when you take that masculinity out of the man, analysis and deconstruction is gone, and all that's left is synthesis and construction. When there's nothing, no raw materials, no intellectual definitions to build on when it comes to synthesis and construction, what the fuck you think is really going to be created in this world? And don't forget to check out Cafe Clothing, formerly Just Scenes merch. Get all of your intricate designs crafted specifically for the melanated being to develop a positive imagery within self and to have a little bit of fun in the process. From the peace, love, knowledge, and freedom to the dead horses and water designs, all of the styles are crafted for the imagery to make you feel as you're supposed to feel. Because as I always say, the best way to fit in is to stand out. And what better way to stand out than with your exclusive styles from Cafe Clothing. All right. I'm going to end it there. Yeah, man. That's intellectual definitions. A lot of motherfuckers have not intellectually defined anything, bro. At all. In any way, shape, or form. In no way. Everybody has emotional descriptions. That's all social media is littered with. But if you notice, like, everybody's talking about the same thing. The same way. I'm going to give you my take on something, but it's another motherfucker's take. It's just my voice on it. When I talk about shit, I often hear people tell me, like, yo, bro, you always have a different perspective of some shit. Like, I'm not trying to have a different perspective of shit, but before I have a perspective of some shit, I make sure I have the definition of the shit. And I don't just have my definition of the definition. I don't have a description of what the fuck I want. I have a concrete definition of the thing that I'm speaking about. So when I'm speaking about it, it doesn't matter what emotional description I put to that. It doesn't change what I'm talking about. If I say masculinity is the spiritual, mental, and physical embodiment, the essence of analysis and deconstruction, nigga, that's what the fuck is going to be every time I speak on masculinity. The fuck? That's just what it is. When I have an active definition of anything, when I speak on that definition, that's what the fuck it is. No matter what details I put into it, no matter what stories I have behind it, no matter what it is, I'm speaking from this definition every time. We have gone through the first 9 laws of the universe. Each of these times I've spoken from the intellectual definition of each of these laws. That's why they're hitting the way they're hitting. It's not an accident, nigga. I can put whatever emotional description I want to once I have the intellectual definition. So when people are like, yo, how are you able to see this, that the world is being put into use? Like, cuz, nigga, I know the definition of what the fuck it is that I'm looking at. So now I can look at the emotional description that is being put at play and learn the balance between the two. And then I can understand why relativity is what it is. So now I'm going to control the relativity because I know as long as I remove the intellectual definition of the shit, I'll control anybody. I'll control anybody, bro. because we're going to tell you what you think we're going to give you the information, make you like, we look at education as actually gaining information. No, nigga, this is programming. Imagine it's 25 of you niggas. Every year since kindergarten, it's 25 of you niggas sitting in the same class learning the same thing the exact same way. The fuck? You're not gaining information, bro. You're getting what you're supposed to be emotionally wired to. That's it. And you're going to do it again the next year, and a year after that, and a year after that, and a year after that. Until it's so wired that now you just take whatever authority gives you so you can pass the test. Like, it's not hard, bro. This education system is built for this very shit, bro. Like, I'm telling y'all, man, motherfuckers do shit for whatever reason they do the shit for, and these are the things that happen. This is how the shit plays the fuck out, bro. But it's this core root. By removing masculinity, you automatically remove the intellectual definition of shit. Don't nobody define shit no more. They just go straight in on the expression. I do have enough respect, though, for the people that, you know, what you trying to say. Nigga, I'm saying it. It's not what I'm trying to say. It's what you're trying to hear. At least when you say what you're trying to say, you trying to see where I'm coming from. But without that, and you just hop to, nigga, that's not what I'm talking about. That is what you're talking about, nigga. You said, no, you heard. Listen to when you get into an argument with a motherfucker and they want to repeat exactly or parrot back what you said that made them say the thing that you parroting back what I said ain't got shit to do with you interpreting what I said. Because that's not what I was talking about or where I was coming from when I said that. And if you weren't clear about that, you should have asked. But you didn't ask. You just jumped into your emotional description. The fuck? Spinning it all the way back. There was an emotional description versus intellectual fact when Jess was telling the lady, like, only a woman can have babies. No. She was using her emotional description. And then try to throw in biology. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because biology clearly defines it as a woman. You could say female, whatever the case may be, but no, it's a woman. No woman is a social construct. That means every other letter of that alphabet system is a fucking social construct. You can't be born those and not be born a fucking woman, my nigga. If the underlying principle is what? The duties. We define a woman by her duties, and then, nigga, y'all were defined by what the fuck y'all did. The actions that made y'all those things. So that means that y'all are not those things. I know that put a whole monkey wrench in they shit. I was born this. No, you weren't. You have been socially constructed the same way you're saying a woman is. But the problem is that a woman actually has an intellectual definition. You just have an emotional description. Because I always felt like this. I always felt like this. I always felt like this. What was the cause that led to the effect of you feeling like that? Get to the root of that. Because the cause that makes a woman want to cook, the cause that makes a woman want to clean, is her energy to nurture. It's not by accident, my nigga. Women don't cook and clean because that's their job, nigga. No, it's because they have a nurturing energy. And food is how you nourish the soul. Cleanliness is next to godliness, keeps the energy straight. Women do that. Naturally. And they do it the best. Not because it's their fucking job, but because that's how you nurture something. If you planted a seed right now, you're going to clean up the area around it in order to make that the soil what it is. You're going to make sure you clean up all the debris, all of the weeds, all of the other shit, so that way it'll grow effectively. You're going to feed it. You're going to nourish it. Right? A woman naturally does that. Now, I get it. We turned it into some slavery shit because of misogyny. Women have to do. No, women naturally want to do that shit. Naturally want to do that shit. When you really fucking with women heavy, they're going to always see to it that you eat. When women really fuck with you, they're going to see to it that you eat. Why? Why is that one thing that you want to feel, want me to feel? Why do you want me to feel satisfied? I get it. They talk about never let your man leave with with an empty stomach and full nuts, whatever the case may be. Fuck all that shit. The food, a woman, her nurturing is in that. A nurturing woman is naturally in that, bro. When she really want, like the food hit different when she really want to nurture you, bro. But that's why a woman is what she is. It ain't the duties of cooking and cleaning. She was already gonna cook and clean anyway. Motherfuckers can try to argue me all day long. That's like, no, nigga. When a woman really fuck with you, a woman is gonna cook. She's going to nurture you. When you're hungry, you will be fed. Simple as that. She cleans for the space and the ambiance, bro. Nah, bro. She's always done that. Always done that. That's just what a woman is. Because it's tied to nurturing and sustaining, bro. It's tied to nurturing and sustaining. But they told you it was a social construct, so now these motherfuckers can't cook. When a motherfucker can't cook, I don't lie. Like if a woman can't cook, I don't have to ask her if she can cook or whatever the case may be, or I never learned. You don't have a desire to nurture and sustain yourself? The fuck am I gonna do in this situation? You see what I'm saying? It's little shit like that, bro. It's little shit like that. But motherfuckers don't want to see that shit. Because society tells you that this is a social contract because you're emotionally wired to the shit. No. This is an emotional description that you're choosing to override. And now because we make the collective be quote unquote politically correct, and now you can get canceled and all this shit, motherfuckers gotta watch what they say. I say what the fuck I want to say. I don't give a fuck about your emotional descriptions, bro. If your emotional description is in line with the intellectual definition, cool. If your emotional description hasn't aligned with, doesn't even consider the intellectual definition, fuck what you talking about. Your feelings ain't valid. The fuck? Your feelings ain't valid. Because you don't even know why you feel what you feel. Because you don't even know what the fuck is going on. The fuck? It's like when kids are young and shit, and all the adults are laughing, and the kid just chimes in laughing, and the adult says, you don't even know what you're laughing at. They don't. They don't. But they see this emotional description of laughter. I'm going to laugh too. Now, there's no intellectual definition as to why I'm laughing. Y'all are laughing at some adult sick shit that I ain't got nothing to do with. But y'all are all laughing, so I want to laugh too. Same shit, bro. Same shit. So that means that child's laughter isn't valid. Yeah, it's funny and it's humorous, but that child isn't really laughing. They're laughing because y'all are laughing. They're not laughing because something is funny to them. Do you see how that plays out? When you're emotionally charged because everybody else is emotionally charged, that's not the same as you being emotionally charged because something in you is triggered. But how do you now, you're at a point where you don't even know the difference between the two. You feel me? You don't even know the difference between the two because of the emotional description that you always put on anything that has been internalized. Niggas just want to belong. And when you're looking for a sense of belonging, it's easy to be exploited from the emotional description perspective. Because you don't need intellectual definition. You just don't. And so you won't seek it. But you'll continue to be triggered and responded from the emotionally descriptive perspective. But I'm going to go ahead and this shit longer than a motherfucker. Go kiss your babies. Make sure they eat their vegetables. And our sons, look, masculinity is the spiritual, mental, and physical embodiment of the essence of analysis and deconstruction. Our sons are already wired to seek the intellectual definition of something. Our kids are as a whole, but this is so for a conversation. I'm talking about our sons. They ask why a lot. Answer their why so they're not emotionally describing shit. Because when they start telling stories matter-of-factly and they don't have the facts that matter, that's how you get caught up into the liars, the manipulators, and all that shit. Like, they don't have the facts. They don't need them. That means they're not thinking. When you're emotionally describing some shit you're not thinking about, your mental health is going to get fucked up. with time. Plant the seed early within our boys to be able to analyze and deconstruct their world. So that way, when they are emotionally wired to some shit, the intellectual definitions that are associated with those emotional descriptions can balance each other out. And they're not always moving from one side to the other. Because one thing we have to stop doing is saying our kids know better when we have not given them any intellectual definitions. Because all we're going to get out of them is emotional descriptions. Good, bad, indifferent. Feel me? Make sure our boys are straight. But I'm going to go ahead and there. Go kiss your babies. Make sure they eat their vegetables. And I'm going to see y'all all on the next one. Peace, love, knowledge, and freedom. I'm out.